A20-100, bonding, including grounding electrode conductors, but we're primarily going to be running bonding conductors. The bonding conductor must be, I don't know, Ryan, we've already went through a couple of different gyration here. Does it have to be listed, insulated, solid, or stranded?
It has to be listed. It can be insulated, covered, or bare, and it can be solid or stranded.
So, George, could I just say a listed conductor?
Yep.
I think it's pretty much covers it.
Yeah, okay.
I got a question.
Yes.
Why listed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2, copper or corrosion-resistant material? I don't know. Maybe all wire is listed.
I don't think.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't know that bare wire is. That was an issue when they were doing the proposal. There was one guy that made a negative comment who was on the panel and said it's absurd to think that a bare wire needs to be listed. What are you listing? It's copper and it's the size, right? You don't need to list that, do you?
Yeah. Good point. All right. The thing is, all I can suggest that you do when you go into communications grounding, what? The telephone wire was 14 gauge.
Right.
The antenna was 10 gauge.
Or 17.
Or 17 if it was part of that assembly of that particular cable.
Mm-hmm.
The cable TV is going to be a listed conductor, 14. Copper corrosion resistant, not smaller than 14.
Right.
As short as practicable. And if you get in 1 or 2 family dwellings, you say, hey, listen, don't have it more than 20 feet. So have that bonding conductor not more than 20 feet. You want to limit the length of that bonding conductor at the dwelling, at other than dwelling, that's a note there, to help reduce difference of potential between the building power and the cable TV system. The insurance company tried to get limiting the length of the bonding conductor to be 20 feet for all installations. And people say, no, 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 no. So they settled for 1 or 2 family dwellings for the 20 feet. Then there's an exception where it's not practical to limit the bonding grounding electric conductor to 20 feet. We're talking about dwelling units. A separate electrode not less than 5 feet long must be connected to the power grounding electrode system with a minimum 6-gauge conductor. I probably have a photo right there, or a graphic right there. So since this bonding conductor is more than 20 feet, you put an electrode at this ground block. This is not a discharge unit. This is a grounding block. And then you bond those two together with a 6-gauge, right?
There's a little bit of an error on that previous slide.
Okay, what do I have wrong here?
The ground rod has to be 8 feet for coax, 5 feet for communications.
Oh, is this 8 feet?
Yeah, 8 feet for the coax.
8 feet for the coax, but 5 feet for the communications.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Hey, well, why 5 feet for the communications? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
I actually just pulled that slide out, so I'm going to show you. There it is, right there. And that's because when that rule got put in, the telephone company used to run around with these little trucks and these little trailers when they first started. And that was the length of a ground rod that could fit in that vehicle. They were 5-foot ground rods. George?
I thought it was because when you get done installing a temp and you've driven 3 feet in the ground and had to cut it off,
yeah,
then you've got a 5-foot ground rod
left over
for communications.
You can use that for something else.
Yeah.
Now, this guy used to work when he was a pup. He was with a telephone company, and he measured this. He went out there and he told me he saw one and he was going to. And he went out there and he measured. He came back to my seminar and he sent me the picture there and it showed what's on. So that's why we have 5 foot for 800. 100A4 exception, but we have 8 now. Well, okay, but how come you have 8 foot for cable? Well, because you had Ford Econoline vans by the time cable came out, and you could put 8-foot ground rod lengths in there. That's the reason why. All right, 820-100, the bonding and the grounding electrode conductors must be run in a straight line as practicable. It must be protected where subject to physical damage. The buildings with an intersystem bonding termination, you take the grounding block and you terminate it to an intersystem bonding termination. Why? We're trying to bond everything together to reduce the difference of potential between the systems. You get a building without an intersystem bonding termination. Now we're running. Here's the problem, though. We're running a grounding electrode conductor. But this conductor has to be insulated. Right or wrong?
No.
It doesn't have to be insulated?
No.
No.
820
Has to
doesn't
be
have to be
listed.
insulated.
Has to be listed.
Well, the telephone has to be insulated. So
No,
we can make
no,
that bare
no.
then.
The antenna has to be insulated.
I think.
It says right here it can be bare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to make this a copper. I'm having Mike.
Actually,
change
okay.
that.
You know what? None of them have to be insulated anymore because they passed that. That's
Oh,
right.
they got the
Yeah, 'cause
insulated part
that
taken
was
care
the
of.
proposal that I did that they passed.
All right.
None
So
of
then
them
let's
have to
just
be
make
insulated.
that bare copper.
Right.
And if you have separate electrodes, for whatever reason, you have cable TV separate from another, then you drive a ground rod there and you bond those electrodes together with the minimum 6-gauge wire. Bonding all systems to the same single point helps reduce differences of potential between the systems during lightning events. We've talked about that many, many times. So here is the AC power coming in, and probably one day we'll make this a little, more looking like a service, and you ground that. And then you have the cable coming in here, and Mike, let's make this more copper looking right here, because that's going to be, if we're going to be going in that, actually let's make this green, and we'll put an intersystem bonding terminal there. We're trying to bring these two to the same potential. Or that, we delete this graphic because we've covered this too many times.